Okay, so a string, as those of you who had some programming knowledge, a string is basically, you can understand, it is a sequence of characters. Now, a character can be any symbol. For example, it can be a digit, it can be a special symbol, it can be the alphabet, it can be some alphabet in your keyboard, some alphabet from the Bengali alphabet list as well. So, but while discussing about the basic architecture of computer, we have discussed that computers do not actually recognize characters. They only understand basically zeros and ones. That is, they actually deals with only numbers. So even though we are typing or seeing some output, which is basically English characters, internally, that is in the internal memory of the computer, they are all stored as zeros and ones, a set of zeros and set of ones. So this conversion from a character to a number is basically called encoding, and the reverse is called decoding. There are basically two very popular decoding encoding mapping, that is called Ascii and Unicode. So as those of you who had some knowledge about Java, Java supports Unicode and C supports Ascii code. Now, what is this? What does it mean? Ascii means all these English characters can be actually interpreted as numbers using this Ascii mapping. But Unicode actually supports the encoding of any human writable characters. So bottom line is, a string will be, for our case, Python, which also supports the Unicode. A string will be a sequence of Unicode characters, and a Unicode is basically a mapping of all writable characters to a number. That is, we are writing A, capital A, but internally it is referred to as the value 65, which is the ASCII value of a capital A, as well as it is the Unicode value of capital A. But as I said, ASCII in ASCII encoding, only the English characters are supported, but for Unicode, all human writable characters are supported. That is, there is a mapping from all human writable characters to a corresponding number. Now, in order to, so this is just the background that you need to know in order to understand strings. So strings will be basically, in Python, string will be basically a sequence of Unicode characters. Okay. Now, to create a string, what we need to, so there are basically 3 ways to declare a string in Python. The first way is, as we have discussed briefly, is to enclose the characters inside a double quote. So this is a string in Python enclosed inside a double quote. The same can also be done using a single quote as well. But mixing is not actually possible. That is, if you are starting with double quote, you should be ending with a double quote. Otherwise, it will be an error. And if you want to put a single quote inside this string, as we have discussed in the earlier classes, that we should be, I mean, if we want to put a single quote character inside the string, it should be starting with double quote. Escape this single quote by this backslash character, right? Now, instead, other than these 2 ways of declaring a string, there is another way of declaring a string in Python. That is enclosing the character, the set of Unicode characters by 3 quotes. Now, these 3 quotes can be single quote or double quote. So this of declaring a string in Python. Now, there is an advantage of using this kind of notation. That is, this kind of notation can be used to declare a multi-line string. So here, in this case, I have declared a multi-line string like this. But if we enclose this string with only single character, a single quote, either single quote or double quote, only one quotation mark, in those cases, it will be an error. So if you want to declare a multi-line string, you should be enclosing them with this 3 quotation mark, either single quote or double quote. Now, those of you having some programming knowledge, you have already seen that the strings are basically a set of, an array of character variable or character data type, which is true for C, C++ or Java or some other languages as well. But this is not actually true for Python. There is no such character data type in Python. So everything are basically Unicode values, and every single character will be considered as single strings as well. So here, this is basically a string consisting of different characters which are not actually charactered in this from the point of view of Python. They are also strings. So if we consider only this A, it is a string. But in C or in Java, this A will be a character data type or CHAR data type, as you can recall. Now, there are certain ways of accessing the characters from a string. Now, if I declare a string as like this, say S1, in quote A space capital STRING space IN space Python, quote ending, then internally it is being stored like this. So in the 0th, so basically it is a list of characters. Note that these are not actually the characters, these are also strings. So these are basically the Unicode characters. I'm referring to them as characters, but technically they are not actually characters as similar to C or Java or C++. So A, then space, then S, and so on. So basically A is stored in the 0th index of this list. The space is stored in the 1th index of this list, and so on. Now, there are 2 ways of accessing the different characters from this string. One is using the corresponding index. So S1, so this is basically S1, third bracket 4 will be basically returning R. So let's just look it up using some code. Okay, so for the timing, let's just copy this code. Okay. Now, if I print S1, you can see a string in Python. If I want to check the type of S1, you'll be seeing it is str. Now, to access the different characters, the first way of doing that is using the corresponding index value inside, put inside in a third bracket. Now, if I want to access the 7th character, what I need to do is basically put S1 in bracket 6, because 7th character is basically stored in the 6th position, right? If I execute this, you'll be getting N, because 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this. So 6, this is. So this is a way of accessing the different characters in a string. Another way of extracting or accessing multiple characters from. So in slicing, there is this special operator, as we have discussed, as we have mentioned earlier or used earlier, which is colon. which indicates an indentation for in case of while loop and for loop, right? This can also be used as a slicing operator. Now, so basically slicing works in this way. There can be three different integer positions that we can give: start, end, and stop step, similar to the one that we have shown in range. So start will be the starting location, end will be the ending location, and step will be the step by which we'll be accessing. So print the value of, say, S1 in bracket 4:13, it will be printing ring in P. Let's look at the corresponding thing. So 4 means I'm starting from here, and end is basically 13. So that means 12, similar to the case that we have shown in range. So the same thing is also true here. And by default, in this case, step has been considered as 1. So I'm starting from start. I'll be ending up to end. That means before end. And I'll be taking a unit step, which is by default here. Now, if I want to change it, if I just change it to 2, it will be printing the characters in the 4th location, 6th location, 8th location, 10th location, and 12th location. Rn space NP. Let's look at this. Rn space NP. So this is another way of accessing the different characters in a string. It is called slicing. Now, traversing a string, character by character, if we want to do that, there are multiple ways of doing the same thing. Let's consider we have a string, say string. Let's again just copy it. Save us some time. Now, if I print string, comma, space, then Python, right? This exactly like this. Now, there are multiple ways of basically traversing all the characters in a string. As I have said in the last class, traversing means accessing all the items in a sequence data type. In this case, the sequence data type is a string. The first is using this membership operator. What I'll be doing is for, say, C in string, print C. So here, so as I have said, for C in sequence data type is considered. So string, as string is a sequence data type, all the different characters, this will be getting this, all these characters printed in different lines. Now HELLO, then a comma, then an empty space, then PYTHON, and so on. The second way is using the range function. Now, how can we do that? For, say, I in range. Yes.
Sir, is the comma is including in string?
Yes, the comma. So the comma is there. So this comma is already there. So here, as you can see, the comma is already there. So this is a character. Note that anything inside this double quote will be considered as a character. I mean, character in the sense, basically a string inside this string, a substring inside this substring, to be precise. So you might be wondering whether this comma is having this special meaning or not. No, actually no. This is basically some other character similar to OL or something like that, or this space. This is just a character. This is not having any special meaning. Like like we have seen during writing some other codes. Like here, comma has a separate meaning. But here, comma is just a character. Comma is just a string here. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Now the second way of doing, traversing all the characters is using the range function. Now, as we have seen that this string is stored like this. So what we can do is we can generate all these index values, and then as we have seen that we can actually access the individual characters by the index value. We can access the corresponding character placed on those index values as well. So what I am doing is this using that index operator, not index operator, but this index notation, that is this index value put inside this third bracket, I'm accessing the corresponding value, right? So let's do that. So now note that it is starting from 0, right? So it should be starting from 0, and there is a function. We will be looking at this function in more details, which is called len. Len returns the length of the string. That is basically how many characters are there. Now, just to show you the len, the output of len of string. So as you can see here, there are 13 characters placed in from 0 to 12. Now, if I execute this, you will be getting, or will be getting 13, or all the number of characters in that string. Now, if I do this, I will be getting print say I'll be getting from, sorry, I'll be getting all the values from 0 to 12, right? Now, as we have said, what we will be doing is we will be basically using this I as the index value, right? HELLO, then space, then Python. The way is by using a while loop. The same thing can also be done using a while loop as well. What I am doing here is I am defining an index. So let's write it. Index equals to say 0. Then while index is less than the length of string, I will be printing the value of that character in that index location, and I will be incrementing the value of index by 1. If I execute this, you can see I'm getting the same amount. The fourth way is using a slice operator, as we have already seen. So again, if I just write it here as well. So for system in a string, the start, end, and step. So let's print all the values. So 0, len of string, and step is 1. I can exclude this as well. And then if I print C, I'll be getting so. Now here, note that for this thing, here I can exclude this as well. For the second case, when I was using this range, I can exclude this 0 as well, because as we know, range by default, if we only provide one parameter, it will be considered as the ending parameter, and the starting will be considered from 0, right? And the step will be by default 1. Now, the similar case, using this slicing, we can also do something like this. We can exclude this as well. But this will be, can someone say what will be the output of this? So what is this? What is this? I mean, if I just print, what will be getting printed? Or will there be an error? So len of string is basically what we have seen is 13. So string 13. Is there a 13 position? Please respond.
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
No, sir.
So if I execute this, you can see a new type of error that we haven't encountered earlier has arrived. Index error, string index out of range. So I am giving some index value which is beyond the last value. So if I provide anything greater than 12, it will be an error. The same error, index error. Now, in case of earlier for the case of range, we just need to exclude them. But for this slicing operator, we just need to provide an empty first parameter and an empty third parameter. And also, if we want to start from say third position, that is 0, 1, 2, 3 from this L, and if we want to go up to say 10th position or say the 10th position, that's why I'm giving 11 here, we can do something like this. So basically, this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This is using a slicing operator. Now note that if I do not give anything as the first one, it will be considered by default 0. If I do not give anything at the last, it will be by default considered as 1. And if I do not give anything here as well, it will be considered as the length. So this is also a splicing operator or splicing way of accessing all the characters in a string. Okay. So the fifth way is using a function called enumerate. So here the beauty is, it is a little bit unusual. What I am doing is, say I, v in enumerate string. What this enumerate is doing is, it is basically returning the position as well as the character. Now this will be returning 0, H, 1, E. So basically I will be 0, V will be H. For the next iteration, I will be 1, V will be E. Then for the the next time, I will be 2 and V will be L, and so on. If I just execute it, you'll be seeing I'm getting this output. So what I'm doing, what this enumerate is doing is, it is returning the location as well as the character in that location. This is the location, the first one. This is the character at the location. So this is basically returning a tuple of values, 2 values. So we'll be discussing tuple and more details in tuple later on. But for the time being, enumerate is returning couple of values, couple of ordered values. First, it will be returning the index value, then the corresponding value. Then we can actually traverse the strings in a backward manner as well. What we can do is, so this we have already written. Let's just copy it. Now, as we have said, this is the start. We can start from the length of the string -1. We can have the ending as say 0, and we can have a -1 steps. So it will be starting from here and will be going up to 0, and will be taking a step of -1. If I execute this, you can see the output is TYTHON in the reverse, then space, then comma, then OLLE, not H. Note that. Now if I give -1, it is actually showing me no output. Now those of you who are actually wondering why this is actually coming, so what if I want to get all the values, right? If I give 0, it is going just before 0. So it is basically going from the 12th position up to the 1th position. Now how to get all the values? To get all the values, -1 is not the solution. -1 will be giving you nothing. -1 is basically indicating the slicing operator providing us an empty string. What we need to do is, we need to just provide it, left it as default. As it is -1, it will be considering this as the ending as the first value, or up to the, including the first value. Of course, you can provide say -2. In that case, it will be steps of -2. So basically minus, so from starting from 12, 10, 8 space, so, I mean 8, 6, 4, 2, and basically 0 including H. So as you can see, the output will be NHY space OLH, not H, sorry, NHY space OLH. See that? Now, the similar way we can also do traverse the string from the backward direction using this index value as well. What we need to do is, instead of starting from the 0, we need to start from the last position. Here we are starting from 0. Here we are starting from 12. And here we are incrementing the value by 1. Here we should be decrementing the value by 1. And here it is index, while index is less than length of this, that is basically less than 13, that is up to 12. In this case, it will be up to index value is greater or equals to 0. So we are starting from here and we are taking one step backward. Using this, we can actually print the string in the reverse manner. Function. This function will be, this function is basically returns another sequence in the reverse manner. So reversed range 0 to length. So this will basically return a range from basically in this case, as length is 13, it will be returning a value from 12, 11, 10, 9, and so on. And then the same indexing way is used to print the string in reversed order. Now, we will be concluding today's discussion with some very trivial operations, string operations. Plus operator, as we have seen, is basically a concatenation operator. If both the operands are of type string, as you can see, if then str1 plus str2 will be hello, Python. There is also a corresponding application of star. If both the operands of star is integer or any numerical value, it is it will be working as a multiplication operator. But if both the operands or one of the operands is string, it will be basically printing that value or basically multiplying the same string with itself that many times, which is given as the second operator, a second operand. So str1 star 5 will basically concatenate str1 with itself 5 times. So also we can store. So this is not actually storing. So after applying this operation, this str1 or str2 is not getting changed. So they are remaining the same. Similar here. So basically, if we want to store those values, those changed values or those new achieved values, we can actually store them in a different variable as well. So these are the operators that we have discussed, and membership operator can be used to check whether a substring is existing in a string or not. So here, if we want to check whether E is present in this string, E in str is basically will be returning true. That means E is present in str. H is present in str. TH, as you can see here, is present in str. But THE, is there a THE here? No. TH is there, THO is there. New substring is not present in this string. That's why it is returning a false. Thanks a lot. So we have started the discussion on strings. We have started with some other operations with strings as well. In the next class, we'll be starting with built-in string functions. There are quite a lot. We'll be spending a couple of classes discussing that, and after that, we'll be discussing how we can compare a couple of strings. Thanks a lot.